Hey everyone, hopefully last time's the charm. I have 11 minutes to do this, so I'm going to try to be very quick about it. I have two projects to talk about, two reading projects. The first is one that was that's based on a series of videos done by a booktuber, YouTuber called duckpondwithoutducks. Unfortunately, I don't know her first name, which I feel like I should by now because I've seen her videos so much, but I don't remember if she says her name in any of the videos. But anyway, I discovered her channel years ago through Lesley over at WordsofaReader, through some book recommendations, or Lesley read some books based on Duck Pond Without Ducks' recommendations, and so that's how I found her channel, and I completely loved her channel. Unfortunately, she doesn't really make videos anymore. She'll make one, I think the last one she made was like a year or two ago, but she did this whole series of videos that was so fantastic. It was her top 100 books that she loves enough and believes have enough merit that she thinks everyone should read them. And these videos were so incredibly well structured. She would do sometimes multiple books in one video, and she would not only talk about the title and the author and the summary, but also a little bit about like a fun tidbit about the author, or the cultural effect that the book has had, or the popularity of it, or something in particular that she specifically loved about it, things like that. And then she would do a little bit of poetry at the end of each video, so it was really beautifully done. And I, after I saw this playlist several years ago, immediately wrote down all of them, tried to figure out which ones I'd read, which ones I owned, which ones I wanted to read, had no interest in, etc. And I, over the years, over the past like 4 or 5 years, have rewatched these videos probably once a year and rewritten out the list to figure out what new books I've read, like kind of to update it. And I thought I made a video about this a couple years ago, but I searched my list of videos, my backlog, and didn't find anything. And it could be that I was just searching like the wrong title or something. So if this is actually my second posting of this project, then sorry, but hey, it's an updated version, so that's good. So anyway, since I only have a few minutes to discuss this, I'm going to try to go through this list as quickly as possible. And then I do have another tiny project I want to talk about at the end of this video, if I have time. Okay, so this is her top 100 list. The first one is 13 Little Blue Envelopes by Maureen Johnson. I love this book. I own it. It is tied for my favorite Maureen Johnson, so I own it and I love it. Next is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. Pretty much same goes for this one. It is my favorite Agatha Christie, so of course I own it and I have read it. Next is Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society by Marianne Schaefer and Annie Barrows. I own this, but I haven't read it yet. I'm actually planning to read it in a couple of weeks before the August 10th release of the film on Netflix. Next is Anne of Green Gables by Ellen Montgomery. Completely love this book. Own it, read it, adore it, halfway through the series at this point. Next is Sweetness at the Bottom of the Pie by Alan Bradley. I do own this and I completely love it. I have read the first 3 books in this series at this point. I have, I think, the first 8 of 9 that are currently out, and it's completely wonderful. Next is Tale of Two Cities by Charles Dickens. I do own this, and it is on my list to eventually read, but right now I'm just not feeling it. There are several other Charles Dickens books that I would rather get to first. Next is Sarah's Key by Tatiana de Rosnay. Again, one that I own but haven't read yet. Next is Around the World in 80 Days by Jules Verne. Same, own it, haven't read it yet. Next is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. I think she was just talking about the first book of this 5-book trilogy. I love saying that. So I've definitely read and loved the first one. I own all 5 of the books, and I've just read the first 2 of the series. Next is LMNOP. I forgot to write down the author's name, so I apologize, but it's pretty easy to Google and find, and this is one that I would love to read, but I don't have it, so I will get it from the library because I checked and they do have it. Next is A Little Princess by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I own this but haven't read it yet. Next is An Ordinary Princess by MMK, I believe, and sadly I don't own this. My library does not have it, but I do really want to read it, so I will get it on Kindle or from the bookstore when my buying ban is over. Next is Little Princes, and I sadly forgot to write the author's name down, but this seems to be a really powerful nonfiction story, and my library does have it, so I will get it from them at some point. Next is Convenient Marriage by Georgette Hare. I have read this now twice in just this year because I read it for the first time in February. I completely love it. I don't own it yet, but I probably will at some point. For now, I just listen to the audio from the library, and it's fantastic. Next is Jane Austen's 6 major works. This is 15 through 20. It represents 6 different spots. And I, of course, own and have read all of them because she is one of my favorite authors of all time. Next is Paper Towns by John Green, which I own and have been meaning to read for years. So, need to get to that fairly soon. Next is Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. 0 interest in this book, to be truthful. Next is Princess Bride by William Goldman. I do own this, and I started it, but put it down in favor of something else, so I do actually still need to start it over and read it in full. Next is Fair de Lance by Rex Stout, and this is the first book in a detective series, so I will very likely at least try the first one. And I think my library does have it, so that's good. Next is Animal Farm by George Orwell. I had to read this for school and really didn't enjoy it, but I might reread it at some point just to try again. Next is The Disreputable History of Frankie Landau Banks by E. Lockhart, and I did read this from the library a few years ago and really enjoyed it. Next is Much Obliged Jeeves by P.G. Wodehouse. This is on my TBR eventually, but I'm reading the Jeeves series in order, and I'm only on book 2 right now, so I will get to that eventually. Next are 2 Pippi Longstocking books by Astrid Lindgren. I don't remember the name of the second book. I really want to read these, but don't have either of them, so I will get them from the library at some point. Next is To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I had to read this for school. I own it and completely love it. It was a very impactful read. Next is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Own it, love it, of course read it. Next is Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I read most of it and didn't enjoy it, so I didn't finish it, and I got that from the library. I might try that again at some point, though, because I love all of the TV adaptations. Next is The Air Affair by Jasper Fforde. This is the first book in the Thursday Next series. I completely love this book. I just reread it last year, and I'm trying to reread/read the rest of the series in the next few years. Next is The Ivy Tree by Mary Stewart. I definitely want to read this. Sadly, my library does not have it, so I will have to buy it when I'm off my buying ban. Next is Sherlock Holmes, and she specifically picked The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes, but I'm just using this to represent like the whole series, because I do want to read all of them, and I have all of them in a beautiful set, so I need to start that at some point. Next is Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. No interest whatsoever, unfortunately. I saw the film, I've seen the film a couple times. I really don't enjoy it, so I don't think I will ever read the book. Next is The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. I have the first 3 books in this series, so I own them, but I haven't read them yet. Next is The Good Earth by Pearl S. Buck. I might read this at some point because I've heard very good things about it. So we'll see. Next is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. I have read it. I completely love it. And I own it. Next is Cordelia Underwood by Van Reed, I believe. I have not read this. I don't own it. And the library doesn't have it, so I'll try to get it at some point. Next is The Maltese Falcon by maybe Raymond Chandler. I might be totally wrong. But I have no interest in this one. Next is The Little House on the Prairie. I use this to represent the whole series. They are all on my TBR, and I will get them from the library at some point. Next is Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, and I own this. I've read it. I kind of enjoyed it. Okay, at this point, I think I'm going to split this in two, because I think my camera's about to cut off, so I will do part 2 after I upload this part. So thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have read any of these, what your thoughts are, and I will link her list down in the description because you really should watch that playlist of videos. They are completely fantastic. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.